Hi guys, it's John from Android Addicts, and today we're going to be unboxing the Ipega 9139. And just a quick note, I'm actually going to be giving away this controller at the end of this video, so be sure to stick to the end to find out how to enter. This is available on Amazon for about £25, and it's actually under a different brand called Geeklin, and I'm not sure why that is. This is definitely Ipega though. You can see here PG9139, and if we compare it to the box of our other Ipega controller here, you can see it's the same design, both on the sides, both say 25 years, game accessories manufacturer on the top, so we know it is definitely by Ipega. Either way, let's open it up and see what we have inside. Okay, so the reason I wanted to try this controller out is because of its modular design, as you can probably see on the front here. So what it boasts is that you can have it in 4 different combinations, such as the following. So if, for example, you're a PlayStation owner, you'd probably have it in configuration C, Xbox owners, configuration D, and I don't know, whoever else would have their controller like that, but it is possible if you so wish. So let's open up and see what it's like. Okay, so in the box we get our instruction manual and a rather plasticky case for our controller. Just pop that there, and we get a USB-A to C charging cable. Now that will also work if you want to plug it into your computer as a USB joypad. But let's have a look at the actual controller itself. Now, initial feeling and thoughts are that it's actually really nice. It feels very good in the hands. It's very ergonomic, and it feels very much like an Xbox One controller. So anyone with an Xbox One will feel right at home with this. We've got a slight sort of textured grip to the sides here, so if you have sweaty hands, that's going to be quite useful. And the good thing about this controller is that it has these programmable sort of paddles at the back here, which you do see on some of the more expensive controllers. Now, as you can see here, this also works on the Nintendo Switch. We won't be looking at that today as I don't have one, but it also works as an Xinput controller for Android or for Windows PCs. So Xinput is the sort of standard Windows controller setup for games. So if your controller supports Xinput, which this does, then you can be guaranteed that it will work on things like Steam and other sort of PC games, as well as Android games which support Xinput. So the difference here on the 9083 is that it does support Xinput, but also supports the Android mode here, which lets you use the sort of overlay function of the Shooting Plus app to configure the on-screen touch controls. This one here, however, does not support that. Okay, so like I said before, it actually feels very nice in the hand. The analog sticks feel good, very clicky. The D-pad feels very clicky. It's quite a nice D-pad actually. It's a lot better compared to the other Ipega I've got here, which is a bit spongy. So this really feels quite nice actually. Quite a nice D-pad there. And yeah, the controllers, analog sticks feel good. Not too loose, but loose enough. I'd say they're slightly looser than the 9083 here. The buttons feel a bit spongy to me. You can hear the difference here. So they are slightly spongier. They feel like, not that you're pressing into a sponge, but they do feel a bit springy. So that could be a potential issue for some people. So to open this up, we've got a nice handy little label here showing us where to pull. So we're going to pull this up, and this will let us get into the sort of bare bones of the controller. So this is what it looks like underneath. So for each of these different modules, you can rotate them and pull them out and move them around. So as you can see here, you open it by just twisting it to the right and pulling out. So do that again with the D-pad, twist to the right and pull out. So if I really wanted to, I could put the D-pad up here, click that back into place, and then pop the analog stick back down there, pop that back on, and you've now got your sort of PlayStation controller layout. So the way this actually goes on is quite clever. It has little magnets which basically line up with the screws in the controller and they just clip in place, and it's really quite as simple as that. So I'm going to change that back to the layout I prefer. And again, we could, if we wanted to, swap these around. And have our controller like that if we so wanted. One thing I think they missed out on here is actually this button layout here. I'm not sure if that's copying, that's probably copying the Nintendo Switch, isn't it? But for normal, well, I say normal, for average players, you'd normally expect A, B, X and Y sort of being reversed. But, you know, it's not a massive problem, to be honest. It's not something I would get too worried about, but it is worth knowing that they are labelled slightly differently to what an Xbox player would be expecting. So that's under the controller. You can't do anything with the other buttons here. They're just set in place. But that is the changing of the buttons. We have got the other D-pad here, which we're going to stick on now and have a look at. I'm going to pop this back on. Okay, so this also has a little magnet here, which attaches itself nicely onto the D-pad. So you've got a nice sort of way to roll your thumb around. I don't know if you're playing a beat 'em up or something where you need to, you know, pull off some special moves. That could work quite well. One thing I have noticed with this, however, is if you go too far down, you can sometimes get it to come out of its holder. So if you're pressing too hard and you're getting really into your finishing move, for example, you may actually end up slipping out of the D-pad sort of magnet holder here, which isn't actually that strong, sadly, because when it is on, it does feel quite good. But for the time being, I'm going to stick that back in the little holder here at the back. And we'll just have a look at the top of the controller now. So we have our triggers. These are not analog triggers, they're just on and off. We have our bumper buttons. They feel good enough. And here we have our start button, our select button, our turbo button, and our programming button, which I will go through in a bit more detail later on. And we'll also go through setting up and programming these paddle buttons. But first I'm going to get the Gamepad Tester application open, and we're just going to see what sort of ranges we get from these analog sticks, whether all the buttons are working correctly, and you know how it's reacting to our input. Okay, so let's pair the controller. What we're going to do is we're going to press and hold the Android button here to turn it on and get it into the pairing mode. So press and hold on there, and we can see number 1 is flashing, and the sort of RGB logo in the middle is also alternating colours. So if we just do a quick scan here, we see the PG919 has now appeared. So we're going to click on there and press OK to pair. And we see that the one has stopped flashing and we're now paired with our phone. So the first app I'm going to test the gamepad with is called Gamepad Tester. Now this is quite a good app for showing, physically seeing what's going on the controller itself. So if I move the analog stick, for example, we can see that moving around in pretty much real time. And again with the right one here. And test the D-pad. Test the buttons. Got the start button here. And the back button for some reason is showing up as the left trigger. So think of that what you will, but the triggers are all working fine. LB and RB are working fine. So everything on the controller is working, which is great. And you can see the response here. If you're worried about any lag in games, and we can also actually test out the turbo function. So I've read the manual, and what it says to do is press and hold the turbo button and then press the button that you want to make into turbo mode. So I'm going to press and hold the lightning bolt here and then press A button or the B button here. And now when we press and hold it down, we have the turbo activated. So you can do that on any of the buttons. So I'm going to press and hold it down and do the trigger. And you can now see we've got a trigger that's on turbo fire. And to stop the turbo fire, you just press and hold the turbo button and then press your button that you had it on, and it turns the turbo off. So again, we'll do that for the A button, press and hold turbo and turn the turbo off. So interestingly, the buttons underneath the controller are assigned to the A, B, X and Y, which I would find probably quite annoying for most games. I'd probably rather have this as a trigger. Now luckily you can actually reprogram these, so that's what we're going to do quickly. But what we'll do before that is just have a look at the zones that the analog sticks can cover. So to do that, I'm going to use Gamepad Tester and test axes. So as you probably saw in my previous Ipega video, we should be able to draw a perfect circle with the X and the Y axis of this controller. So I'm just going to bring this a bit closer so you can see. So yeah, what we would hope from this is a sort of more perfect circle. If I just compare this quickly to my GLAP controller, for example. Right, so if we compare the axis on the GLAP controller here, we can see that this one does a much better job at drawing a circle, which is what we were hoping for from our new Ipega here. So yeah, you can see there, very nice circles, but the Ipega does struggle. Okay, so next up we're going to go and reprogram these buttons here, because I don't want those to be accidentally pressed when I'm playing a game. So to do that, you have to sort of go into the programming mode here. So you press and hold the start button, and then you'll press the key that you want to reassign or to remove the reassignment from, and we should see hopefully this logo flash white. So let's just test that now. So holding start, I'm going to press the bottom trigger here, and I'm going to let go, and hopefully that is no longer pressing the B button. So I'm going to do the Y button now, this one here. So I'm going to press and hold start, press the button itself, wait for that to flash, and then let go. and that's no longer doing the Y button. And we'll just do the other two quickly as well. So start, press the button, let go. That's been removed. Start, press the other button, and let go. Okay, so we're back to a state where we've got no buttons assigned to the underneath buttons. Okay, so assigning buttons is a similar process. What you need to do is press and hold the start button, but we're going to hold it in this time during the process. So let's say we want one of these as the trigger, right trigger button. So we're going to press and hold the start button. I'm going to press one of the underneath buttons here. Keeping the start pressed, we're now going to press the right trigger, and that should now assign right trigger to our button underneath. Let's say we want to assign this one here, so we're going to press and hold, press the button to assign it to, and then press what we want to assign to it, which is the left trigger, all the time whilst holding start. So we should now have, oh, that didn't seem to work, let's try again. Press and hold, press the button, that's because I let go of start. Press and hold, press the button, and then press what you want to assign to it. So now we've got our two triggers assigned to our underneath buttons, which I think could be potentially useful. I would still probably rather use the actual triggers, but you could then assign them to something if you so wish. Now this button here is only used for the Nintendo Switch, so we're going to ignore that. So I'm going to load up a game or two and just go through them, and we'll see how it gets on. Okay, so here we are in Sonic the Hedgehog, and this is a game that I know supports the Xinput mode straight out of the box, so we don't need to do anything funny here. And it seems to be handling quite well. It's certainly responsive enough to actually respond to my quick changing here. I'm going to try it with the D-pad sort of piece here, see how it is, see if it's any easier. No, you see that's come off straight away, so I think that's going to be pretty much redundant, sadly. But I prefer the actual feel of the standard D-pad anyway, to be honest. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to load up Panda Gamepad and just go into a game of Call of Duty. If you want to check out Panda Gamepad, have a look at one of my other videos which I've linked down below so you can see how to set it up. But basically we can now use this controller with any game we like. Okay, I'm just going to do a practice with AI because I don't really want to upset people. But you can see here I've configured Panda Gamepad layout. I've set the sensitivity settings as follows. So hopefully, as you can see, we'll have a reasonable game. I've also actually set the settings in sensitivity to be speed acceleration. 237 is the number here, and I find that that's kind of, you know, what you would expect from, you know, the way you control with the right hand stick. So I'm just going to shoot a few bots. And you can see here it's pretty responsive. Let's just set off our bomb here. And I think we'll leave it at that. So I suppose the main question is, would I recommend this? Well, it's got its slight issues. Like I say, the buttons being slightly sort of mushy, not solid feeling. It's got a nice D-pad, as you can hear, and the analog sticks do work fine, even if there is this slight strangeness with the axis on the left here. It could just be my model, maybe I've got a bit of a funny one. The D-pad piece that kept falling out, again, this could just be that I've got a dodgy model, but if we have a look at this, you can see that's pretty much perfectly square. But if I look at the D-pad here, we can see that there's actually a little piece here which seems to have been either sort of mashed or something has hit it maybe, so it's not actually a perfect square, it's kind of rounded. So I'm guessing that's why mine's falling out. So if you want to be in with a chance of winning this controller, all you need to do is like the video, subscribe to my channel, and then leave a comment down below in the description telling me how many kills I managed to get against those rather difficult bots in Call of Duty. I'll announce the winners on my website, so be sure to click the link in the description to find out if you've won. And it's open worldwide, so best of luck to everyone, and I will see you in the next video.